Hi Brianna, it's me again. I hope you're doing well. I remembered that last time you mentioned having interest in hearing some of the ghostly stories from my family's past. So gather around the computer monitor because I have a treat for you. I have a couple of stories I would like to share with you. The first is concerning my great-great-aunt Laura. Now, great-great-aunt Laura had a best friend named Amanda. Amanda was a very proper, well-behaved Victorian lady. Great-aunt Laura, not so much. Laura died young, and only days before she died, she told Amanda that she thought she would be reincarnated. Laura believed that she would come back as an otter, because she said that she really hadn't been a good enough person to come back as a human. When Amanda argued that Laura hadn't been that bad, Laura proceeded to tell Amanda about some of the nasty little pranks that she had played on Amanda's husband, Egbert, whom Laura seemed to think was about as much fun as a root canal, and not a very good root canal. For example, Egbert had gotten angry when Laura's collie puppies chased his speckled Sussex chickens, and so, in retribution, Laura released the chickens into the seed shed so that they could eat up all of the seeds that Egbert had been saving for the next year's garden. Now, Amanda was shocked when she heard this because she knew that Laura knew how much the garden and the chickens meant to Egbert. So she began to think that maybe Laura really would come back as an otter. Laura went on to say that she thought that maybe if she was a good enough otter, she might come back as a human of some sort. And she specifically mentioned coming back as a little Nubian boy. Well, after Laura's death, Egbert's flower bed was ruined and his chickens attacked by some sort of animal. A visiting friend of theirs thought that it looked like the work of a polecat until Egbert said that there were webbed paw prints in the soil exactly like an otter. When Egbert said that he was going to bring in some hunting dogs to catch and kill the otter, Amanda freaked out and she begged him not to. However, when Laura the otter killed the remaining chickens and ruined the strawberry patch and stole a salmon from their cupboard and scattered its remains all over their Persian rug, and this was an expensive Persian rug, there was nothing Amanda could do to keep Egbert from killing the otter. Well, Amanda was so upset by knowing that her friend had been hunted to death that she became very ill. And so for her health, Egbert took her on an extended holiday in the Nile Valley. Well, Amanda was recovering pretty well when one day she came in and found Egbert in an absolute rage. And the story goes that he was yelling something along the lines of, "That little beast has thrown all of my clean shirts into the bath. Just wait until I get my hands on you, you little beast of a Nubian boy." And that was when Amanda lost her mind completely. Another story from my family's past that involves the supernatural is the story of my great-grandfather, Geoffrey Pierrepont. Now, Geoffrey Pierrepont was invited one Christmas to spend the holiday with his aunt, Elizabeth, who was known for being wealthy, lovable, and eccentric, and who was, I understand, actually Laura's sister. Anyway, there was an odd condition, and that was that she wanted him to stop and look at Gauntmoor Castle on the way. Now, Gauntmoor Castle was a medieval castle that had been moved to Perkinsville, Ohio, of all places, by a particularly odd millionaire, Thaddeus Hobson. Now, upon his arrival, my great-grandfather was surprised to find that Thaddeus, whom he had been told was usually very reclusive, was warm and welcoming. He learned the reason pretty quickly. He learned that Thaddeus Hobson had purchased the castle and moved it to its current location because it was supposed to be haunted by a particularly romantic spirit. And he was upset because years had gone by without this spirit, who was supposed to show up every Christmas Eve, appearing at all. Well, Thaddeus explained that once upon a time the lord of the castle had locked his beautiful daughter away in the tower to keep her away from her suitors. And there was one love-struck knight, Sir Geoffrey de Pierrepont, who tried to walk along the castle wall to reach her bedroom window so that he could whisk her away in the dead of night. He fell to his death in the process, and it was his ghost that was supposed to haunt the castle. Now, my great-grandfather Geoffrey quickly realized that his sharing a name with the ghost was not a coincidence. The ghost had actually been his ancestor. And Thaddeus was hoping that having Geoffrey there would prompt the ghost to show up. Well, while staying in the castle, my great-grandfather discovered that his host was also keeping his daughter hidden away whenever young men came to visit. And just like his ancestor, great-grandfather Geoffrey fell head over heels in love. He and the lady exchanged letters under the crack in her door or through her window, things of that sort. And he was absolutely determined that she was the love of his life. And, just like his ancestor, Geoffrey decided on Christmas Eve to climb the wall to try to reach his lady's window and whisk her away, because, that worked out so well the first time. Before he did, however, he decided to dress himself like the famous ghost, using a sheet and an old helmet from a suit of arms in the hall. So now he looked like a kid trick-or-treating on Halloween who didn't quite know what his costume should be. He then scrambled up onto the wall with his sight and his movement impaired because, this wasn't dangerous enough as it was. And once he was up on the wall, Geoffrey got the surprise of his life when he ran face to face with the real ghost. Now, great-grandfather Geoffrey was terrified, not to mention rather embarrassed by his own outfit, probably because the real ghost didn't look like the kid who ate the crayon. Well, my great-grandfather tried to speak to the ghost, and to his surprise, the ghost answered him. The ghost of his ancestor told him not to go through with his idea, and urged him to learn from his own mistakes, essentially telling him that the way to win a lady's heart and her father's approval wasn't by whisking her away in the dead of night, but rather through patience and love. Well, my great-grandfather took the ghost's advice, and he went back to the house. And he was met by Thaddeus' daughter, who told him that her father had seen the ghost from the window and had nearly fainted. And so great-grandfather Geoffrey revived his host with some liquor, and the old man was absolutely thrilled that he had finally gotten to see the ghost. And it was at that time that he seemed to really take a liking to Geoffrey. So great-grandfather Geoffrey was invited to stay for Christmas dinner with Thaddeus and his daughter, and my understanding is that it was at that point that it became clear that Thaddeus would actually allow Geoffrey to court his daughter, whom my great-grandfather did eventually marry. Anyway, he seemed to be very grateful to the ghost for this, and so at the table, Geoffrey lifted his goblet in a toast to his ancestor, the transplanted ghost. And that's it. Those are the ghostly tales from my family's past. I hope you enjoyed them, and I'll talk to you next time. Alright? Bye!